15 rounds, then make it fast. Then Sunday turned around and was another friend has a couple. And it was icy on those same trails. Some people chopped it down. I saw that. It's just remind me which neighborhood you're in. Which neighborhood?
Well,
It's Tuesday.
it is Tuesday.
Thanks for your help out there today. I appreciate it.
Sure.
So what do you do in the government?
I don't know why it does that. Honestly, don't know why it does that. It seems to do it every time.
I know there's like still like there's right now terms.
Oh, I know.
It's still about a 9-10 point spread. I think it's easy. Something like 800 some odd votes now. Is that just have some. That would be interesting.
Are you friends with Paul Sharwell?
Yeah, real time, it's like the stock horses, right?
Yeah.
Like it's take or take going.
Oh, yeah.
Cameras right there. They probably have something like that in their suite. There's something like their service suite.
Phil, these are just cute ones
They
today.
have all kinds of money too, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever been to their conference?
Is there a conference?
Yeah.
I've been over to their training sessions at their facility. Oh, it's like that, like, was it at the- it was at the-
She did see that man there.
Wow. Yeah, they do Branson, Richard Branson. It's crazy. It's like, it's a zoo. There's so many people who've never been to a conference like that. There's,
No, if I
There
lived
was
for a
someone else that was
while.
doing conferences like
Yeah,
that.
immigration.
Back when I was, I got out of college.
Oh, okay, that's
We had
fine.
some-
yeah.
All of them were,
I think.
Yeah.
It was a big, mega
Did you know how Tammy's family's
Yeah.
doing?
fun to watch.
I think okay.
Elizabeth Bashing, I totally organized, like,
I think they're doing okay.
They get by something kind of discount.
such a weird thing.
I talked to her a couple times and I think they're doing okay, so.
Uh-huh.
Hunker down.
Of course, this last year, they had Kansas at the pandemic.
Oh, that's
Hopefully it's
yeah.
over
And
the.
then I was like, how we this, you'll have to.
Yeah.
Something you,
Yeah, that would be fun.
Of course, everything centers around using a platform.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Yeah.
There's good keynotes.
Yeah, interesting people.
Yeah.
Wow, that would be cool.
Just to LTI. So if you look at it, just what do we know, you think we should or not?
Ready?
Oh, I forgot. I wish I would have brought my glasses.
We don't have to read that tonight. We only have to read it once per month is the rules. Sorry, I did check on that with Richard Stoll. So as long as we read it at the regular session each month.
See something, let me know.
Richard's counting down on his phone.
So are they thinking they're not taking
It's
it
just,
all?
it's so professional.
Okay, welcome to our Murray City School District study session for today, November 17th, 2020. With us today is our board members, Darren Cooper, Will Merrill, Elizabeth Payne, I'm Vice President Belinda Johnson. Our President, Tammy Anderson, is at home with us via Zoom. Hi, guys. And we have our superintendent, Jim Covington, and our business administrator, Richard Reese. And we will go ahead and start on our agenda with our equity presentation. Is up first? Or is up? That's there. Thank you guys for being here.
And so thank you to the board for letting us continue on and having a study session, a continued study session on equity. So previously we've had both Dr. Vanessa Joe and Kara Cerise come, and they're gonna go through the presentation tonight, and we hope that we can answer questions or have discussion. And this presentation centers around a memo we had sent out back at the end of August, and then they'll kind of outline it, and I think you guys know the narrative there. But I'll turn the time over to them. We're grateful to have them.
Okay. Hi. Darren asked that we both kind of explain a little bit about our background and give you guys just a little information session there about why we're doing this work and our background in it. So I completed my educational doctorate in leadership and policy last year, and I specifically worked on systematic oppression in special education and parent involvement surrounding IEPs and independent education plans. And I also literacy coached in Salt Lake City School District and worked on equity curriculum there. And now I'm working in Horizon Elementary on equity curriculum with my staff. And I also taught for 6 years. But that's just kind of a brief overview of my background with equity work. And I'll let Kara do the same thing.
Sure, so I kind of already gave a little bit of an introduction in, I think, the first study session that we did, but I teach third grade at Parkside Elementary. But prior to coming to Murray District, I was really involved in the Inclusion Center for Community and Justice. They're a local nonprofit here in Utah, and they're dedicated to eradicating bias and bigotry and informing and educating different people in the community, schools, counselors, law enforcement, about anti-bias training and education. So I first attended one of their leadership camps when I was 16, and then just continued to be really involved since then. Throughout my time in college, I went to Westminster College. So in addition to having my teaching license and teaching experience, I have an undergrad in sociology and also in Spanish and Latin American studies, hence the interest and experience in equity and social justice. And while I was at Westminster, I served on the board of directors for the Inclusion Center for Community and Justice. So, and that's actually how I met Dr. Jackie Thompson, one of our presenters from the first session that we did. So just wanted to give a little bit of background, and I do quite a bit also with the Pride Center and with the Break Recovery Center. So that is partly how I got involved in wanting to do equity work in any position that I have and as a teacher here in the district. So before I get started with kind of doing a recap of what the process of this memo has been and what has happened, I just want to express that the work that we're doing is not about blame or shame or guilt or controversy. It's just simply about learning what we can do to be better educators and to best serve all of the populations that we work with. So I just want that to be clear, and that often takes a lot of learning and unlearning of things that might not be conscious or obvious to us, given whatever identities that we hold. So I just wanted to express that before we kind of go into the presentation. So as Darren said, back in August, there was a memo that was sent out to all staff. And the first memo is stated there in the second paragraph, saying that schools have the authority to control employee political speech and what happens in the classroom. And there were some examples given down in parentheses, like MAGA, Make America Great Again, Biden 2020, defund Planned Parenthood, etc. And so that was sent out on the 25th of August. And then a couple of days later, on the 27th, this addendum was sent out and went on to expand and include other examples of, here it says, political speech not allowed that wasn't mentioned in the first memo also includes signs, posters, and displays of Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, rainbow flags, Confederate flags, border wall, immigration, etc. And when this memo was sent out, this addendum was sent out, there was quite a bit of concern among educators in receiving this message, and a lot of educators, especially who hold specific marginalized identities, felt harmed and as if there might not be a place for them here in Murray District, or felt as if their identity is being politicized. And this also created some fear among educators and what they can and can't be talking about or displaying in their classrooms, which has been, I know, a big barrier to doing equity work, as in the work that's going on over at Horizon. Students feeling like, oh no, okay, so wait a minute, I'm supposed to support my LGBTQ students, yet I'm receiving a message that rainbow flags are not allowed or considered political speech. So there's been a lot of conversations and a lot of responses to this addendum, and a lot of discussion with the Equity Council and educators and the district office as well, and also with the board. We've done several study sessions to get some information and some education around why these displays and messages are important for educators to be able to discuss in their classrooms. So what we've done since this addendum has been sent out is the Equity Council leadership team, which both Vanessa and I are on, as well as, please make sure I don't miss anybody, Darren, as well as Darren Dean, Lilybeth Tapia from Parkside, Morgan Longy from Parkside, Stephanie, oh, excuse me, not from Parkside, from Hillcrest. Stephanie Reese from Hillcrest, McKaylee Shields from Hillcrest, Carrie Honholt, the district math specialist, and who else am I missing? Darren sits on the leadership team. I don't want to miss anybody. But what we have done as a leadership team is Darren kind of made an initial draft, and then we all came together and we took that draft and made a revised and then revised it and came up with a memo that felt like was more in line with the values of the district. And then after we wrote that memo, we presented it to all of the administrators in the district as well as the district office staff. So everybody in the district office and all administrators in Murray City School District have seen this new memo and has supported and expressed approval, I suppose, for the new memo that we're sharing with you today. So we wanted to share with you what we've come up with. And we also showed this to the rest of the Greater Equity Council, and asked for feedback from everybody on, if there was anything they wanted to include, take out, edit. And so this is the copy of the new memo. So Vanessa's going to go ahead and read that.
I'll read it aloud, it's a little cut off, and then it's just nice to hear as well. The Murray City School District would like to offer clarification regarding the addendum to the memo on the first, amendment in political speech issues. We recognize the addendum was a mistake that harmed our community and was not in accordance with MCSD values regarding equity. Moreover, clarification on our position is long overdue. MCSD believes that Black Lives Matter. We condemn racism, sexism, discrimination, hatred, or other actions that marginalize our students or employees. This means fully embracing our responsibility for inclusion, belonging, and justice, particularly for people of color, Indigenous peoples, people with disabilities, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer people, immigrants, refugees, people from low-income households, members of minority religious groups, and people from other marginalized populations. MCSD supports and encourages all educators to center equity in their daily teaching. Some examples include equity-based curriculum, conversations, dialogue, and displays that emphasize the dismantling of individual and systematic barriers to student achievement. We are committed to prioritizing equity in MCSD. We are very every one of us. Okay. Do you have another? Yeah.
I just wanted to make a quick comment about this because no matter who we are or what identities we hold, our identities are really important, and we don't just check them at the door when we go into the classroom or when we go into the office or wherever we work, and neither do our students. And so we need to make sure, as I had presented in one of our other study sessions, that the identities that we hold and that our students hold are recognized and celebrated and discussed in our curriculum and in the things that are happening inside of our classroom, because students experience their identity every day, and it's our job to affirm those. And part of being an effective educator is understanding the identity and lived experiences of our students, and knowing how to best serve them. So I just want to mention that as part of some of the intentionality in naming some of the specific identities that you see here.
And then in your folders, I put two, just so we are within Utah Administrative Code to produce this memo. So legally, we can make the statement, and ethically, we have the responsibility to make minoritized students and employees feel welcome in our school. So there, I did put some links on here, and then I also printed out just federal and state law that supports the equity work and directly supports the memo itself. So I think it's just nice to have the background with those laws and policies, that our memo is directly in line with those laws and policies. So the administrators, all administrators also have these links and resources as well, just as we go through this process. Thank you again. You guys were very supportive of equity work, from the get-go. And that's been really helpful, I think, to the district and to the Equity Council, just Murray School District as a whole. So we're super excited about the new memo and kind of what that stands for, and just your support with everything thus far. And I think that it's always good to look at equity work as one step, and we'll just keep making more and more steps towards equity and inclusion in our schools. And we're also wondering if there's any questions that you guys have.
So I guess my first question would be, and I'm trying to make sure I'm processing the memo itself. We're now advocating for allowing some type of display, be it a Black Lives Matter sign, LGBT sign. Does that include some of those that have a polar opinion of Blue Lives Matter, Veteran Lives Matter? Where do we allow, where do we not allow? And what's that deciding criteria, and how does that impact?
Kind of a part of that question for me too, as I thought about it, and we received many emails and letters about this. Maybe the equity committee can address people that say how do we address people that say we should have enough? I don't know how that's what I'm saying, I can't wrap my mind around that, like, because it kind of seems like we're polarized all or nothing, or, you know, so
Yeah.
maybe that's a discussion still of how do we address those people? So I think those two things kind of,
Just a reminder, board, if you can talk right into your mic, so President Anderson can hear.
so if it answer Jaren's first and then.
Sure, I think I have a couple of thoughts on that. And one is that when we're talking about equity, something that's really important to take into consideration is history and looking at the history of marginalization and the history in a broader context and sort of how Dr. Jackie Thompson was talking about, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement as being a continuation of the legacy of civil rights. And so I think, and this kind of reminds me of what happened back in, I think it was the early 2000s with the whole clubs law here in Utah, where there was, you know, at East High School, some students wanted to start a gay-straight alliance, and then there was a law put into place that banned all extracurricular schools and clubs in order for the gay-straight alliance to not be able to have a club. And so I think, like, when we're responding to people's questions about this, I think taking into consideration the history of marginalization and whose voices are we lifting up, and you know, when we are considering classroom material and so forth. So yeah, Darren, it seemed like maybe you had something else you wanted to say.
No, I'm good.
So yes, then let's go back to Jaren's question.
So basically with the signage situation as an example, I mean, if we're going to allow some type of display, Black Lives Matter, LGBT Lives Matter, we are already getting a lot of push and feedback from people saying, hey, what about Blue Lives Matter? What about veterans? What other, and I'm sure there are other organizations that may feel
Do you,
oppressed now potentially by that.
so
If they're not allowed to
I'm
do
not
so.
on the agenda, but do you care if I read something from USBE? Because I think it's after that very thing. Are you guys okay with sharing space with me? Okay. I think their most recent board meeting, they had a similar conversation as they looked at their equity policies. And they were also asked by Superintendent Dixon to update, to be more reflective of the times that the students and employees are encountering right now. So I'm just going to read to you a couple paragraphs from here. They say, in our role as USB Equity and Advisory Committee, we would like to provide input and recommendations to the USBE as it pertains to the current climate in our state and schools for our marginalized students. We are collectively concerned about our students who are witnessing and navigating the ongoing social unrest caused by the increased and racialized and xenophobic public discourse. The disturbing images of the killing of unarmed Black citizens by police in the numerous protests that the Black Lives Matter movement has organized across the nation in response to these unsettling realities. Both children and adults are trying to make context of our new world. Many of our students have experienced and will continue to experience marginalization resulting from deficit thinking about their racial and ethnic culture, xenophobia, continued overrepresentation in behavioral referrals, and underrepresentation in advanced classes. Considering the complex lived experiences of our diverse community, we must seek to understand our students and strive to intentionally engage in anti-racist practices to ensure students feel safe and welcome in our schools. And then they go on to list what they're asking for, which is training of all employees, and then to ensure that there's understanding of the protected classes under the law. And that's what I think it speaks to when we start talking about some of these other things. They're not a protected or even a marginalized class under the law. And so when we look for those identities, those students, those employees who might be discriminated against and treated unfairly, that's where we can go to answer these questions. And
I think if you have a chance to go back and listen to Dr. Jackie talk about why Black Lives Matter, it was really a point for me to say, okay, there's this social unrest and things are happening over here, but that mayor's statement is really a plea from Dr. Jackie on behalf of many people to say, keep us safe, don't marginalize us within your system. And I think that that's an important distinction. So this, by the way, just for reference, it was a memo on September 9th, 2020, that was with the state school board.
And who prepared that?
It was the Advisory Committee on Equity of Educational Services.
Did they take a position on it?
They have continued to discuss it as well. But they went from actually talking about policy to moving into action steps of more training. And that one just barely made the news a couple of days ago.
And I think something else that might be helpful too is Darren has some just questions, that could come up, like why can't I have the Lives Matter, signs in my school or in my office? And then we've also prepared answers for administrators to look at those, and so that we're having that common messaging throughout our district. And I think with anything, there comes some pushback sometimes, but I think being on the same page and having that dialogue is really important. So I'm sure that that's something that Darren can continue to support us as administrators as well.
I have a question. So are you two and Darren, all the principals are doing the training, or are you folks doing the training in our schools? Or both?
Training, which training are you referring to?
The equity.
Yeah, well, we're a council, and we are, like, some of the projects that we are working on are doing just that, is trying to get training, and that training would not be offered by us. It would, as far as district training and professional development for teachers goes, it would be doing trainings with, like, Amanda Darrow, for example, who presented at one of the other meetings, and some of the other community organizations and professional organizations that have a lot of experience and expertise in these fields.
So are we moving forward on that right now?
We're working on that right now and seeing as far as, seeing if, for the calendar, because I know that we're coming right up on when is kind of decided for next year professional development. And so we would really love, and that's one of our biggest asks and things that we're working on right now, is doing just that and making sure that we get some inclusion, diversity, and equity professional development locked in for the next school year. So yeah, we're hoping to do that.
So my family kind of got put on blast from last meeting when you guys were here, so I'm saying carefully what I want to say, but have we ever, I understand marginalization. I understand that you guys understand that and you're teaching us, like, I understand that. But if we ever put somebody in your equity council meetings that feels strongly that they're marginalized as an officer's wife or a member of a different religion, I don't know, somebody that's kind of giving you guys the flip side of, because you guys jumped on board and put a lot of time in it, so your feelings are all very strong. If you ever ask somebody else to sit in your meetings and kind of say, like, Sharon is always really good about being the devil's advocate in here. And sometimes we need to hear, let's say, what about this opposite way of thinking? Have you guys thought of having somebody come in?
Yeah, so I mean, there are a lot of people on the Equity Council, and we're not all the same. We have different various beliefs and backgrounds, and one, I would say that the devil already has a lot of advocates, and I think that someone who doesn't understand or thinks that, I feel like there is not a solid understanding of what Black Lives Matter actually means if there is any kind of resistance or hesitation in supporting the message, because Black Lives Matter says Black Lives Matter. It doesn't say Black Lives Matter and anyone else's life doesn't matter. And so I think that there's an educational piece there missing if the message is not fully understood. So I'm always happy to talk to anybody about their feelings or opinions on this, and I just also refer back strongly to the training that I received and to other people who have expertise in equity, such as Dr. Jackie Thompson, who has presented and really trying to understand the Black Lives Matter movement and message in a broader context of social justice and civil and human rights.
And also too, in your folders on those back 3 pages, there's an example of what the Equity Council is working on in our Equity Council minutes. Yeah, so I think that it's really nice to kind of get like a full picture of what that looks like too.
So, Vanessa, can you take that back to the statement for just a moment? So, Jeremy, this goes to addressing yours. So that last paragraph there, that last, thank you, Kara. And I still have to bend over. I'm afraid this is gonna fall off when I touch it. So that last paragraph where it says we encourage all educators to center equity, and some examples include curriculum, conversations, dialogue. I want to focus in on where it says displays. It just doesn't say displays. It says displays that emphasize the dismantling of individual and systemic barriers to student achievement. It's really quite specific. If you think about it, it's saying, what are the barriers? Yes, we have marginalized populations, so would a display, and that's what we're looking at. You know, is a sign appropriate? Is it appropriate to say to our Black students or students of color that, hey, we understand, we don't understand, but we're trying to understand what you're going through, and we support you. And that's, I'm trying to look at it through the simplest lens, and I know it's a highly politicized thing that we just narrow in on, and I'm not even going the whole breadth of equity, I'm just narrowing in on the Black Lives Matter, because it is highly politicized. But if you look at it as just an expression of student support, that we're supporting this, that it's an anti-racist statement from the district, that's the lens I'm viewing it through, and I don't know if that helps. And I know other people, Belinda, like you say, other people come at it from a total 180 degree, and not everyone's getting it. We won't get everyone to see it the same way. I'm looking at it, what do our students need to feel safe in the school and to feel like, hey, I have a place here. And that's not telling everyone either, hey, you need to put up a sign. I don't think everyone needs to put up a sign.
Well, that's something Rob has said before, is somebody feels safe or recognized, and he talked to us about that before. So this is more just coming from a board member that we're hearing, like, we're gonna get a lot of that money. We are.
Yeah, we're getting it already.
We are.
Right,
So,
yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And so that's a good way of putting it. I think what you said through the lens of individuals and their needs and being recognized, but we're getting a lot of push, so.
Yeah, and there's definitely people that will say, they'll say this is a political issue, and, you know, I have other people that say, no, it's not. And
So where do we draw the line? I get, and I'm totally in support of doing more for equity, but it can become a tool in the political arena. And how do we define when it steps across that boundary of social justice to political tool? And that's the part that scares me, is how do we manage that from a district? Because there will be individuals that are well-intended, but it becomes a political.
So I think I just really want to bring back what we're talking to identity, and like the identities that we hold, how, like what makes us us, and that being so important. And so I think we really need to focus on it is very different to show support of a political party. There is no place for showing support for a specific political party in classroom and in education. However, there is support and there has to be support for affirming, once again, and celebrating student identity. So that is what is at the center of what we're talking about here.
And then I think also too, from that packet that Kara had made with the 40 pages and all those resources, and kind of just following along what other districts are doing as well. I think that's kind of how we stay out of what you mentioned, Jaren, because that's a good point to not take that turn, but to also be in unison with where we are, as a state and what other districts are doing as well. And I think that using the equity piece as a tool to make sure that we are inclusive and really advocating for our students and faculty, I think that's where it stops. Do you know what I mean?
Just the same thing. Just can take that turn.
That's the challenge.
Like I loved, Sharice, the last time you were here, your opening statement about how you have seen kids from, we're Parkside people, nations and nations. And you mentioned all these different way families looking, kids looking, individuals. I love that part. I love that statement you made. Yeah, how do we keep it about that? When you say individuality, I want to, these are marginalized groups that need to be seen as individuals, but everybody needs to be seen as an individual. Whether your father's in the military, you're a veteran's, child, you are Black, you are gay, lesbian, all of them are individuals, and how do we stay on that path that they're all important, because each of our children is important, and our staff and faculty members.
Yeah, and so I really love the piece at the end that says, "We are Murray, every one of us."
As a former teacher, I think what really helped my students the most was that the teacher cared about them and really did about them. And I think that the curriculum is critical, but it is also critical that you know every student sitting in the classroom.
One other question. I didn't see this in the statement, so I'm making the assumption that it's probably, we're good, but I think it's very important that we are lifting our marginalized groups up. What I'm also concerned about, or what I potentially hear a little bit about, are people that feel like that the majority then becomes kind of unintentionally marginalized, or they feel like they should feel bad because of the status. That they had no choice. They were born in whatever situation they were born in, but now they feel like they're now being highlighted as somewhat bad because you had an opportunity in a family that this other group didn't. How do we not negatively impact people, but raise all people or all students up?
Go ahead. And I just think that those shared conversations, we started the summer with listening with care. We continued with follow-ups to that. I think this study session, the work of the equity committee, that's how I think we build community. We start to hear each other for our lived experiences. And I think just even understanding and listening. If you remember this summer when we were talking about this, I said I think that we can really open up our hearts to hear the experiences. It will make all the difference. Right now, I'm teaching 21 of our teachers in the culturally responsive teaching class for the ESL endorsement. It's been amazing, the experience, and even people reaching out in their discussions and their assignments and saying, I never considered, and Flo, what you said about the curriculum and the way that we teach our students, I've seen such growth and opportunity in that arena, as well as these other conversations where people are really seeking to understand what does it mean to be a student who comes from a marginalized background for multiple reasons. And with this one, it is your language learners. You could definitely layer in any of the other things that people get targeted for or that they feel left out for. And I think that it's not about making anybody feel bad. I think it's about connecting us as community members.
And I think also too, I did, with the equity book bundles that I shared last time, I did have a parent with that same concern. And we had a conversation and I showed them the book bundles and the curriculum that goes with it. And then after she looked at it, she's like, oh, this is good. Like, never mind.
And I think those conversations have to be very intentional,
Yes,
because if
yeah.
not, it's going to be unintentionally
Right.
the opposite of that.
Yeah, and I really think that showing people, what it is really beneficial. And I think it helped that parent specifically feel comfortable with what was going on, on in Horizon Elementary. And it was really cool too, because like after that Parent Square post, so that I had that one conversation with her, and then everything, there's like 33 positive comments about it too. And so it was nice to see that much positivity. And then also after having that conversation with her, to see her comfort match that for her child. And I think that a lot of the times the words get scrambled or politicized, and then that makes those conversations feel a little bit challenging. And I think that just showing her exactly what was going on was a good solution to that.
Right, and I think there's a lot of those conversations that are going to have to happen, because even in that same, when you were showing us that each age group has a different, objectives or curriculum or whatever, and they're very appropriate. Right? There's a lot of conversations. I don't know how we tackle. I mean, it seems like it almost has to be done one at a time, and that seems like an impossible task to do one at a time.
No.
We can do it.
That's why we're here. We love to do that, and that's, I think, as administrators and all our group together, we're happy to have those conversations and to do so in a respectful and listening way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that's being said, and it can feel really overwhelming. And so that's why I think one of our requests as a council is to involve everybody in our district in these conversations and in these trainings, and really come together as a community. And kind of going on addressing what you said, Jaren, there are a lot of different ways to affirm people's identities, and something that happens is what I mentioned a couple times ago, is that there's a lot of diversity at Parkside, and that same diversity isn't reflected necessarily in the staff. And so there are students who, when they can see themselves in the staff, that in itself feels really affirming. And so since that's not there for a lot of students of color, that is why, we've been talking so much about affirming those identities through curriculum and stories and other ways. So I just wanted to mention that.
And just kind of coming back to this, I mean, the reason for this memo is because there was some harm done. So we're looking to repair some harm. Obviously, we have some of our marginalized groups in society were harmed, our employees, staff members. I know the council members have heard about it from numbers of people, and a few of them have shared with me. I don't know how many people you have heard from, but we're trying to repair harm, and it's certainly not meant to marginalize any other group in the district either. I mean, that's why we ended that with we are worthy, every one of us, because we are, but I think it's a lot of hard work. I think there's a lot of discussions and a lot of dialogue that has to go into it to continue working as a whole that meshes together as a school district for the benefit of the students. So.
We have any more questions or discussions?
I'll just say a comment. I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to thank you so much for all the work that you've put into this. I think this memo is a really good one that I'd like to see go out. So thanks a lot.
You guys, I think that's where maybe you guys are ahead of us, because sat and spoke to each other, and you know what I mean? So this is our first time seeing this version, do you know what I mean? So it just takes a minute.
You've gone through these conversations yourselves.
Yeah,
We're just trying to figure out how to prepare to answer them when we get questions that do come.
exactly, and be reflective on it ourselves,
That was really important.
and
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and we love the opportunity to have these conversations and are appreciative of them. So I think that, thank you for asking like open and honest questions and really telling us like how you're feeling about it and what your concerns are, because that's how we can all work together. So that's good. And, yeah, I think that Darren, it's also, if you do get comments, I think Darren has some really great resources for answering those in a way that, again, reflects our district and everybody being included and accepted. So there's a good resource for that.
Yeah, and just thanks once again for your openness and for like all of the opportunities that you've given us to speak and to have these dialogues. It's meant a lot.
Thank you guys for your time after very long days.
Thank you.
Jen, can I say something?
Yes, Cammie, you're good.
So as far as we're not voting on this, we're just talking about this memo that's going to go out, right? We're not doing any kind of vote.
It's not policy.
Yeah, there's no vote on that. So, I mean, obviously, we know there's some strong feelings about this, and we wanted the board to be aware of it. I mean, ultimately, we'd love to have the board's support. And so, I mean, this is for the board to look at and discuss, and, you know, as a district, you know, our feeling is we'd like to send this out to rectify some harm that was done, but we also don't want to cause additional harm. And we want to be prepared to answer questions thoughtfully and move forward together, unified. So, does that help?
Yeah, so maybe we can, each spend some time with this, and then we can, maybe have, I hate to keep saying a discussion, I'm not trying to kick it down the road, but like I said, this is the first time we've seen it, so.
Is there a plan to when this would roll out?
Yeah.
We were hoping to roll it out soon, but we'd love to have the board some time if the board would like some time to like look at it and have more questions answered. I think that's okay.
I guess that's the question. Do we feel like there needs to be any more discussion about it at this point?
I'm comfortable with everybody on.
Cammie?
Yeah, I feel comfortable with the memo. We are getting a lot of pushback from just people in our district, making sure, because on one side it's not political, on the other side it is political, right? There's people are divided on this. So trying to find something that doesn't politicize this in other people's mind, to me, is kind of a struggle.
Well, that's just the first step. You send out the message. Now we have to back it up and with every specific situation that comes our way, which there will probably be many. And so that will be when it becomes challenging.
And I think that's why what Will mentioned, that training piece is really important to continue to push and move forward with. Because that will be important.
I'm going to be fair and say I really get about 1/10 of what anyone says in this board meeting. So I'm struggling. I can't hear anything Belinda or Elizabeth say, and very little of what is said at the pulpit. So it's a struggle tonight for me.
I'm supportive of moving forward at this point.
Okay. Looks like that is where I'm at, and you guys have done so much work, and it's very helpful, and again, I can feel that. So, thank you. Is that our action item we need?
I have one other question. I think in our schools, the principals need to kind of understand what's going on in every classroom. That's very difficult, because some of our teachers will not agree with some of the things in this memo. So the principals have to really step up and say, agreed. I think that's the call to action for all of us, is to step up and figure out where our gaps are and what kind of education and training we need to be doing for ourselves, for us as educators, as a board, as a district staff, and as individuals. So that's a great point.
And Darren also presented the memo, they got administrative feedback on it, and then met to the specific concerns that we all kind of worked as a group with together. And we'll just continue doing that, because I agree that, you know, like you said, every situation might look different. And that's how we continue to support and prepare and just continue, you know, good work in our schools. So again, we're really happy to be here and really excited about continued work in the district and then also in equity. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we are good. Superintendent, do you need a
Based on the information I sent you earlier this week, I do not have a need for a closed session unless the board feels like there's a need for personnel or property to be discussed.
It's here, so.
Nothing's changed. Okay, I do not have anything for this evening on that.
Yeah, so dismiss and whatever the word is for our meeting. Adjourn. Dismiss is what is here last night.